collegiate dance realm right now. So I think that it kind of just depends. I think we're seeing positive changes in certain areas, which I think is great. I definitely think that we have a long ways to go as far as across the board, making sure that it's kind of like the same from each program to each program.
Yeah, thank you. If you're just joining, I'm Bree with Apala, here with my co-host Melissa McDaniel. We're chatting today with Teri Rowe, who is the Executive Director of the NDCA, and Carsen Rowe, who is one of the most sought-after choreographers and dance consultants in the United States, as well as the owner of Tribe 99 Choreography. We're talking today about how we can prepare our students for the collegiate dance path and what challenges they face when they pursue that path, with the goal of let's get them ready. Let's start early and get them ready so that they're well equipped to succeed however they want to. But we're going to dive right into the first segment. We appreciate you both being here, but and pop your questions for Teri and Carsen in any of the chats on any platforms. We will get those answered for you. But Teri, we just heard a little bit about how the dance team community has evolved in the last 30 years or so. Obviously, it's highly competitive, and it's only getting more so as time goes on. But we're talking about how we can best prepare students for that path. What is the major difference you want to note from collegiate competitive dance versus high school dance?
I would probably have to say a couple of things. I would say the skill expectation. You need to start training early and really continue a comprehensive training, not just, oh, I take a hip hop class, or, oh, I dabble in this. Really, they need to diversify their training, and they need to stay in those ballet classes and the technique classes as long as possible, as early as possible. Get those babies in the classes and keep them.
Do you feel like, because I feel like at the high school level, ballet is kind of the thing that gets thrown out the window in lieu of dance team. They want to do dance team, so I've got to get rid of something. Ballet is like the first thing to go, right? Do you feel like you're seeing the effects of that at the collegiate level?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you can see the kids who have that really diverse and really comprehensive training have a distinct advantage. They're the dancers that go on to the higher level teams. They're the ones also too, let's say that you're in a mid-level team, but you struggle with your turns and you struggle with your technique. So you always have that anxiety because I don't have the technique to back me up. Yeah. And so you're worried about where your position is in the routine. And you're also worried about making the floor for the routine. So it creates a lot of stress. And so if you just solve the problem early with getting a really strong foundation under you, it makes your life so much easier as you go on in your dance career. The other thing I would tell you too is the time expectation to be prepared for what goes into being on the college
Teri,
Teri,
I'm gonna pause you because they're saying on Instagram they can't hear you. Do you have yourself muted? Just take it off mute and turn down the volume. So
I'm not muted, but I have my volume down.
Okay.
You're fine.
You don't have it. Do you have it on silent?
Hang on just a second.
I want to make sure they can hear you, so that's the only reason I'm stopping you right now.
Hear me now?
Instagram, can you hear Teri now? Teri, say something again. Teri, go ahead and talk again. Say testing, testing.
Oh, Teri, no, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys on Instagram. I can't hear her. Make sure, do you see the little microphone on there, Mom? Is it say muted? Sometimes it's weird.
Yeah, it's in the box. You should have a microphone, Teri. Just make sure that's not got a slash through it. And if you're just joining, we're figuring out some audio issues on Instagram, but if you're just joining, I'm Bree with Apala. We're chatting today with Teri Rowe and Carsen Rowe, and we lost Teri on Zoom here.
No, technological difficulties.
It's every week. It's something. It's something. Teri, log back into Zoom, and so we can get you in on Zoom. But you can pop over and join us on Facebook too. If you're having a hard time hearing on Instagram, we're on Facebook at Apala Performance. We're chatting today with Teri Rowe and Carsen Rowe. Teri is the executive director of the NDCA, and Carsen Rowe is the owner of Tribe 99 Choreography and one of the most sought after choreographers and consultants in the United States for dance team. And we're chatting with them today about how we prepare students for the collegiate competitive path, dance, of course, and the challenges they face on that path. So if you have any questions or comments to contribute, please pop those in the chat on any platform and we will get those answered for you. Carsen, while we're waiting for Teri, are you there? Can you hear? Teri, can you hear us?
Probably because her volume's down.
Yeah.
She probably turned her
Oh,
Zoom volume down.
Okay.
No, she turned her phone, but since she's not on Zoom, she probably can't hear.
Got it. Yeah, we got to log back
that's
into
right. Yeah.
to Zoom, get her to log back into Zoom. But Carsen, while we're waiting for her to log back in, oftentimes we see dancers who dance competitively with a studio for many years, and they transition to their college careers, and their focus shifts then to dance team. So they've got this well-rounded studio competitive background. Then they go, I'm going to audition for the college dance team.
Yeah.
In general, do you feel like those students are more prepared than ones who maybe did dance team in high school? Less prepared, or just prepared in a different way?
Right. I think that's honestly such a great question. And I'll start by saying that I feel like that's an area specifically that we definitely need to close the gap on a little bit more, because as you know, my mom kind of said at the beginning of this session, the industries now we're seeing collide so much, and the amount of studio dancers that are transitioning to these college teams now, and the amount of college coaches that are looking at recruiting straight from studios now, we're starting to see that way more often. So that's a great question as far as, preparedness for studio dancers. And I will say that prepared in a different way. So I think like option 3, answer C to that question. So usually studio dancers are training more consistently. So what I mean by that is when you're in the studio, you're usually training every single day of the week. You usually have a diverse training background, whether that's by like tap, jazz, musical theater, ballet, whatever. Like in that studio realm usually encompasses a lot of different styles. So in a lot of ways, studio dancers, when we're talking about that fundamental technique element, they tend to have that because they have been training in a studio, in comparison to dancers that might only train on their dance teams solely. Now, there are a lot of dancers out there that are double whammying, right? There are dancers that are on their high school dance team, but balance that with also being in a studio. I would say that that's the most common. The only not negative, but the only, I would say, like prepare in the preparation in terms of things that studio dancers would be missing majorly would be the POM thing. So this POM category, as we know in the collegiate dance realm, we have 3 categories to choose from. We have jazz, hip hop, and POM. So very different than the studio realm of categories that we can compete to or choose to compete in. This POM category is nowhere else except for this dance team industry. So it's definitely this kind of like X factor genre that a lot of studio dancers, when they start to kind of prepare in their recruiting journey or start to audition or show up at these recruiting clinics, they are like, everybody's like, hit a high V, and the studio dancers are like looking around like excuse me, what? Like it's like taking a brand new, like walking into a ballroom class and like knowing nothing. Like that's what it would feel like. So that's definitely, I would say, like a gap right now where the studio dancers that are looking to transition, that's one area that like when I'm mentoring studio dancers where I'm like, you have to get with somebody and figure out like some POM technique just to have the base knowledge. Because I always tell dancers, but no matter what college dance team you go on, you will do all 3 styles. So that's something that we don't, sometimes a lot of dancers think, oh, well, they compete in jazz and hip hop. But they forget that on the sidelines, you're doing POM. Or if you compete in POM and jazz, you will do hip hop at a timeout, at a routine. So when my mom was saying this well-roundedness of training, that is something that like I hone in anytime I'm teaching anywhere, is having that well-balanced menu of your training like throughout the week is so important when it comes to collegiate dance right now. So I think studio dancers have a huge benefit because they tend to be very fundamentally trained, and having that strong technique can get you far. I think the gap would definitely probably be in that POM area, and just the vast difference, kind of like the mentality of studio where it's like, staging and transitions are just so different than like when it is such a big part of our score sheet in the dance team industry. So like you have to stay in this spot on this dot, can't move 1 millimeter over. A lot of studio dancers who are used to like, traveling, being wherever they want. They're like, this spot feels good today. it's just such a different, it's definitely a different transition for
It's
sure.
interesting though. And Teri, if you can hear us, I know I think you can hear us on Instagram. We need you to log back in on Zoom so our friends on Facebook can hear you. So, log back in on Zoom when you can. But it's interesting that I'm hearing you say that these studio dancers have almost a leg up, no pun intended, but some pun intended. But at the same time, speaking from my own experience as a director, so many times kids are like, bye bye studio dance. I'm just going to go do dance team in high school because it's less of a commitment. I have too much homework. The stresses and demands on them as kids, right? Because that's what they are first and foremost, and people and humans. They're so high pressure that they can't take it anymore. So they end up saying goodbye to their studio dance career in high school. But I'm hearing you say that's probably the most valuable thing that they can do is to have that training. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, spot on. I mean, so what we have to remember, and I feel like I try to explain this a lot of times to dancers that are like, I just want to do my dance team. And is that a problem? No, I'm not saying that it's not, but I do think that like when you're thinking about a dance team, the general commitment that we have in just looking at the dance team area, being on a high school dance team today, is a lot, because you're not just focusing on your nationals routines, just like college, you're focusing on community events and you're dancing at football and basketball and this and that. And so we don't physically have the time as coaches to be able to implement technique a lot of times in our practice. So on dance teams, it's not a bad thing. We just aren't training. Like that's not our time at practice when you're on a dance team is for dancer A to look like dancer B. It's not for personal development a lot of times of dancer A, unless we're summer training. And like, there are, I think, some coaches out there that try as much as they can to constantly be, combos, technique. Like, is that something that we are seeing being implemented more? Yes, but it doesn't replace the training that you get when you're going from a studio classes from 3 to, or dance team from 3 to 4, and then studio the rest of the night. So I think you just hit it spot on, where it's kind of just like, it's not necessarily bad, but when dancers are asking me that question, as far as like, do you recommend that I quit my studio? I'm definitely like, no.
I love it. I feel like I want to take this soundbite and just blast it out like on loop.
Right around age 14 or 15.
Oh, because
everybody decides that Friday night football is where they want to be.
And it's such a social thing. And, I think a huge thing too, that we have to realize, I think is a huge factor of this, is the relationship between studios and dance team, which like, I know I'm probably getting into another whole topic here, but that's a whole day. I'm like, but to throw this out there, I do think something that a lot of times it's not these kids' fault. These kids are being influenced by their mentors and their people. And I think that's also why it's so important that we work together in kids' development, because you see so many times where studio owners are saying, don't do your dance team, or you're seeing dance team coaches saying, well, you can't be at a studio. And you have these kids who these people that they're looking up to the most that are influencing them in a negative way, instead of saying, go take as many things as you can, go do as many things as possible. So I
will say if that could be a thing where the directors of the studio teams and the coaches of the high school teams could work together in some capacity. I know in my experience, again, I reached my arm out and my hand out to all the schools in that district and was
shut down immediately.
There's just no compromise. There's nothing. It's like, this is what the team requirements are. We don't work around you. And it becomes really hard to navigate that relationship and accommodate at that point, because you have no communication from that coach. So I'm sure there's a lot of that going on both sides of the aisle, but it's
well, there's definitely there's no coincidence either. I mean, a lot of those really some of the best teams in the nation, these high school teams that you see, usually have a correlation with a really strong studio or plural studios that they're training at. So it's definitely, I think, very important.
Yeah. So I would encourage any coaches that are watching and listening, find a way to reach across the aisle and work with your local dance team directors, reach out to your school coaches and work with them, because it's just going to benefit the dancers. You're hearing that right now from Carsen and Teri. And Teri, welcome back. I'm sorry we lost you. Turn on your camera on Zoom. We can't see your beautiful face. But finish, because you were talking about we were talking about the difference in collegiate and high school dance, and you were going on to your number 2 bullet point, and I want to give you a chance to say what that was.
Make sure you're unmuted too.
Unmute, yeah.
I don't know if you're muted. For those that don't know, my parents live in the mountains in Idaho. So sometimes speaking from quarantining with them, we have some major internet problems.
Unmute yourself on Zoom, Teri.
She's like, I have one thing and another thing.
I know.
You got to unmute on Zoom so we can hear you on Zoom.
Whoever the host is can unmute her.
Yeah,
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, Teri, go ahead. Number 2.
I'm unmuted, but I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, so give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, there we go. Okay, like Carsen said, we are up in the mountains, so I apologize.
That's okay.
So if I cut out on you again, that's the life of a rural living. So.
No worries.
Okay, well, my next item was, I was talking about the time expectations. I missed what Carsen said. I hope I didn't double up on her. And I think that's a big shock to students who come out of the high school level, getting into the college. I think that they think, oh, I dance at the games and then I compete, but they don't realize the 10,000 things that go into, besides an extended practice schedule, that you're trying to balance your academics, particularly freshmen who come in. They're away from home, new place of living, new food, new friends, new life, and it's a really big change for them. So there's the emotional and social change. Then there's an extended, the higher academic pressure on you, and then you have longer practices, plus you have PR performances, everything known to mankind. So it's a big change, and they hit the wall. It just slams into them. And then particularly when they get to about October, November of their freshman year, where 15 sports are coinciding with each other, it is a really big change.
Yeah.
And so I think that the more parents can help educate kids, and the more the coaches can help educate about it is different. A lot of the things are the same. And if you're a studio dancer, you're used to being at the studio from 3 p.m. till 9 p.m. every night. So the practice is not the issue. It's the other things that are thrown on your plate that really tends to swamp their boat. And they start to go down emotionally and mentally about November, December, and then you throw nationals on top of it. And then they're like, help me, I'm sinking. And so it's just a knowledge of college, a big jump up. It's a giant step up, and you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a comment over on Instagram from the Real Mama Sue over here. Real Mama Sue. Made sure I got that right. In Illinois, you cannot do both outside competition in high school. Any thoughts on how to explain it in recruitment? So I'm not sure if she's coming from the dance team side or the dance studio side, but that from both of them. As a dance studio owner, how do you say, yeah, come, but you can't still do your dance team? How do you say quit your dance team, or on the dance team, how do you say quit your studio? How do you address that in recruitment?
Right. In recruitment, is she talking about like to college coaches that are looking at these dancers that might only be doing one or the other, or recruiting like from the same pool of dancers in your kind of area for your studio? So I think I'll speak on behalf of like college coaches. I think maybe that's probably what she's asking. Most college coaches, if they're familiar with recruiting out of that area, will have a general kind of idea of state rules. So there might be those rules that are state, which you obviously can't control. So they're more understanding in that area if you have to choose between one or the other. So I don't want you to think that that'll deter you, because most college coaches will be aware of state regulations regarding those things. So it's definitely something worth mentioning, because if a college coach might ask your dancer, why are you not training in a studio? And then there's a simple answer back to that. So definitely just being transparent about the state regulations, I think, is key. But college coaches tend to be familiar if they've been in this recruiting model for a while. So,
so they're not going to be penalized for that in any way.
No, I mean, especially if they can't control it at all. So I think what all you can do is to show that you're still training super hard. If you're on the dance team side of things, I would just recommend that you still, take conventions, take any outside training opportunities. So that way you can still show that on like your resume, or like when you're talking to college coaches. And, if you're on the dance studio side of things, just being able to say that, oh, I've taken class from this dance team industry professional, or, just making sure that you, again, have that well-versed training to make sure you're set up for success.
Absolutely.
I would love to know more about, I mean, because in North Carolina, there's no, you can't do one or the other. Why would there be state interference in whether you can do a
There's all
studio
kinds
and
of
a
rules at the
Yeah,
state level that shouldn't be there, which
it's
I'm not even going to get into.
crazy.
Like they can't wear a polo socks, and let's kind of
Wow.
save that
Oh
for a
my
different
gosh.
day.
She's like, and
Or you like,
crosswalk.
yeah, the rules sometimes when I'm choreographing, I'm like, can somebody explain why? They're like, we don't know. We can't answer that. I'm like,
Wow.
okay. But
Okay. I've
I
never
think,
heard that because in North Carolina, it's
yeah,
a free for all. Do everything.
right.
That's
you
A
feel
lot of
like, and
states do try and control that.
this is being a serious, and Teri, I think we've talked about this a little bit, but do you feel like some of the states are antiquated in the way they're looking at dance team because they're treating it more like cheer when it really is like they're dancers. They're these, I mean, cheerleaders are athletes too, but dancers are athletes in their own right. So do you think that that's part of the problem, is that they're getting lumped together like they're cheerleaders and they're not?
I think we just lost her right as you asked her.
We lost her on Zoom, but she's still live on Instagram.
Okay, go for it, Teri.
I can hear you on Instagram, but I can't hear you on the Zoom. My Zoom is not connecting.
Oh no. Okay, let's see.
Do you want to, can you, if she still answers on Instagram, is that fine?
Yeah, you can answer on Instagram. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I missed part of your question. Can you repeat just the back half of the question? I am so sorry.
No, I was saying, because we've talked about this, that do you think the reason that states we always say the states have all these rules that we don't understand, and why do they have these rules, and who makes these rules, right? Do you think it's because they tend to still, they're a little bit antiquated in lumping dance and cheer together, so they apply rules to dance that maybe should be applied to cheer, and they're treating them like they're the same sport, but they're not
Different sports,
right?
yeah.
There's a huge problem with that, and that stems from, that goes back 25 or 30 years.
Right.
And that goes back to an industry problem. And for so long, they were paired together, and then at some point, they really started to separate, but the mindset didn't separate with that. And so a lot of people in our industry still see them as the same. At the high school level, you've got the National Federation of High School Sports creating all the rules for most of the high school teams, and they lump it under spirit. They have one spirit rule book for both dance and cheer, and the language in the book is really cheerleading language. So a dance person picks it up and cannot read the rules. It's like I'm speaking in a different language to dance people, and things don't apply. Like they have shoe rules and attire rules and apparel rules that it's like, well, we don't do that in dance. And so what we're working on with the National Dance Coaches Association is we have a group called the Dance Task Force, and we're actually creating education initiatives to separate the mindset that dance is dance, cheer is cheer, and although we go under the spirit umbrella together as partners, we are very separate activities with separate training needs, separate safety needs, different apparel, different footwear, everything. And it is a philosophical problem, and we really need to work and with the Dance Task Force. Part of our project is going to be to address the NCAA, the NAIA, the NFHS, to say cheer and dance are two separate activities, and this is why their safety needs are different, and to really educate them, and that'll trickle down, we hope, to athletic directors and everyone who's working with dance teams, is that knowledge that they are in fact separate activities. And if you think the analogy I give is ice hockey and field hockey.
Right.
Absolutely.
Stick, you smack the puck in. Better example might be water polo and soccer. Both have a net, both have a ball. Two totally different sports.
Totally.
Right.
There's lots of analogies.
And I love that you're doing that work. I love that so much.
Right.
It's so important. But yeah, but I think going back to that really could be why, going back to your question, Melissa, just because I think they're being lumped in with sports. It doesn't make sense. They're being lumped in with cheer. And obviously anybody, if they were looking at it logically, would know that a dance team dancer would benefit from additional training at the studio level. So it doesn't make sense why they wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
But
yeah. I
there's a
just
problem.
I'm about to go way off on a tangent, and I shouldn't, because I know we're getting down to time and we really want to explore some more. But that burns me up, because I mean, I'm not sure if cheerleaders are banned from going to other cheer gyms outside of their cheerleading squads.
Yeah.
It's like, go to the cheer gym and also cheer in high school.
But dance don't don't go to a studio and dance in high school. And I just don't, one of the big things, and we've talked about this in other shows and other topics, why has it been such a struggle for dance to get its own identity and its own respect as a sport or an activity that requires athleticism and training? And that's still the question in the air for me. I don't understand why, when you can see it clearly visually that this is an athletic
I think I
activity.
really want to say it's because, and this is just my opinion and you weigh in, sure, but I feel like it's because there is no standardization or governing body for the entire sport of dance. There's factions and segments of things, and the NDCA, and all of the different high school and collegiate levels, and then there's studio dance, and there's but there's no governing body for the entire sport of dance, where I think it's easier for other organizations to get together and command this respect, because they do have that pyramid set up, right? Dance is kind of all over the place. It's a lot of independent studio owners, and everybody has their own way of doing things. So how do you regulate that? How do you even begin to start regulating that? And just with anything, the needs of the dance industry have changed, like Teri said, so much over the last 30 years. I think we need to take another really hard look at it. It hasn't been looked at for a long time, clearly. Teri.
Yeah, they're like, and yes, and yes, and some yes on top of yes is what I feel.
Yeah. So if you're just joining, I'm Bree with Apollo, here with my co-host Melissa McDaniel. This is Beyond the Steps. We're chatting today with Teri Rowe and Carsen Rowe about the challenges collegiate competitive dancers face and what we can do to best prepare them at the studio level for that collegiate competitive dance path. Carsen, at the studio level, how can directors and educators prepare their students dance-wise, but also emotionally, for the collegiate competitive world? What can they be doing now, or should they be doing, and what would be helpful, with the gaps that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think that's so key. And I think the biggest thing is honestly just exposure. I find that a lot of the issues when I'm like working with studio dancers is truly kind of starts with just the general like knowledge of this completely, though very similar in so many ways, a completely separate industry and like separate pathway of their life that they want to pursue. And so I always say, start with, like, I just actually did a webinar on this, and I was like, I talked about your toolbox and a tool that you have to have, and these dancers and something that studio owners specifically can help with, because a lot of times it's, also on the studio owner side, it's just such a different world. And so it's getting the education yourself by, what is a college dance team? What do they typically do? Where do they all where do they compete at, and what are the different competitions? What is there, the game day programs only and versus the competition programs, and being able to have that knowledge and being able to share that, I feel like, with your dancers. Another way to do that is, and I've done this a lot too, is getting dance team professionals into your studio. So all of us, the realms are so intertwined. I always say, like, I grew up as a studio dancer, but competed on an all-star team in the dance team world. So like, I was lucky enough through my great mother, Teri Rowe, to kind of have a intertwining dance team career, where a lot of people are like a lot of people are just a studio person. And so I think that just the more exposure you can get into getting these, I hate to call them, but dance team professionals like myself, people where my experience and knowledge and like my business and everything, though, do I experience other industries? Yes. But getting people like myself, or people that are a local college that's a college coach, getting them in to do college prep classes or talk about, what is college dance, getting on these webinars. I host a lot through my company, Tribe 99, a lot of free webinars, a lot of webinars to sign up for about like how to become a sought after recruit, what things to get in your toolbox when you're showing up to these recruiting events to be able to stand out. And so just getting, I would say, a big issue is these kids can't do it themselves. And so I think that I love that we're having this conversation about what parents and coaches can do, because I find that so many kids come to me and they're panicked because they just don't know where to go for the information. So I definitely think that us as kind of their mentors in all their different areas of their life, if we can all come together and do our base knowledge kind of research on this, we can help them understand it a little bit more, which I think is huge, instead of putting that all on them because they are so young and are trying to figure out so many things. It's also a lot to put that all on them. So I feel like definitely having that exposure and doing that research about just in general. I know it sounds very literal, but what is a college dance team? What does it typically include? How many dancers are typically on the team? Just
and doing it from the lens of not projecting your own opinions into that explanation, right? Because oftentimes with studio directors and educators, you'll see them, because they have such a respect for contemporary company dancers and Broadway, that they will kind of insert like a tone or some little commentary in there that sways a dancer from one thing or another, and making sure you're just giving the information, presenting it to them in a way that they can filter it on their own and decide what's best for them. And that's hard to do, right? Because we all have our, you know, the way that we've been conditioned, the way that we've been trained. But would you say it's fair to say, just like as studio directors, we worry about bringing people in for master classes and making sure that we're exposing our kids and taking them to, as you know, conventions and getting them different perspectives and training and multiple styles, would it be beneficial to bring in somebody like Tribe 99 or, you know, a dance consultant to come in and do a master class for dance team technique and dance team terminology? Do you think that would be helpful?
Yes. And I think, areas that I would tell you if you're interested in hiring people to focus on, or when you're asking these people to come in, is, you know, using the term just like audition prep and college prep, you know, somebody that knows the difference between, you know, we're in a huge, which I'm sure, I don't know, we'll get to in a second, probably in this conversation, but we're in a huge change right now in the collegiate dance industry between audition versus recruiting models for the team selection processes. So our processes. So we're seeing a massive change in that realm, which is now, I feel like right when dancers and studio owners started to get a hold of like, oh, college dance auditions, it's like the entire industry kind of took a sharp right turn to recruiting and left people in the dust again. And so now it's this like it's kind of this like dark place that nobody knows, because the information's it is. And all these teams, to your point about regulations, you know, there's no, this is the date that you have to turn in your videos. This is the date that authors go out. This recruiting model, everybody's running independently. So it makes it honestly, and I feel for high school kids right now, and I say this all the time, it's challenging. I'm like, you have to have your own independent calendar and planner to stay on top of these things. So it's hard. I mean, I just want to, I feel for any studio kid or person or any high school dancer out there or parent, because with this new recruitment model and kind of the way that the collegiate dance industry is going, it's like a whole new ball game now. So I feel like people are kind of like just trying to, you know, scavenge for any information that they can. So
yeah, I
get
like it. Kids, the pressure on them at this age in general is so far beyond what we had to deal with when we were that age. And I agree with you. My heart goes out to them and their parents, because it's not just them dealing with it either. But to that point, Teri, what can parents do to support their dancers in this goal if they want to dance at the collegiate level? You know, oftentimes parents don't know. Parents rely on what their studio director is telling them. They've never danced themselves in many cases. They've never danced. They have very limited exposure. So they just kind of do what they're told and follow the best they can. What can they do to best help their child succeed if they want to pursue that path?
I think the biggest advice is for parents to try. The first thing I always tell everybody is make a spreadsheet and start looking at not just dance teams, but also put down what academic programs a college might have. Are they a game day team or do they compete? You have to really kind of categorize what's important to my dancer, to my daughter. Is it far from home? How far away is it? Is my daughter or dancer, my male or female dancer, ready to go away clear across the country to dance? So you have to really kind of get a spreadsheet going, put down the schools of interest, put down the coaches' names, get on their website, parents can really help kids through this with doing a lot of research. Most dance teams have incredible websites. And I find that a lot of students and parents do not even get on their website, go into these combines and start asking them questions like, well, where is the University of Cincinnati located? Oh, I don't know. Let me think. And they also don't understand things
like, when should they be doing this? Like when? Like how? Like junior year, sophomore year,
early.
Early.
I would say, I think and this is so important too. So for all my parents on here, I always say every time I'm on a webinar, I'm like, listen, this is coming from with all the love in my heart. But I think there's also a balance, right? Like parents, I think can help, but I think making sure that your dancer is involved in this process is even more important because they'll be learning as they're going through it with you. I think a lot of parents will be like, here's the spreadsheet of all the schools that I found that compete in the areas that you want to compete in. And all the kid is left with is like checking a box, yes or no. And so then they're showing up to these events, not knowing where the school is, not knowing anything. And so, yes, 100% have parents help on the journey. But I think a huge area where I would, if you're a parent on here, what I would tell you is just how encourage, it's like helping your kid through the process instead of doing it for them. And I know that's so hard because there's so many things on their plate right now. And so when you might have the time to put together the spreadsheet, but having them sit there, do it with you, they'll have like their toolbox will be way more filled, quote unquote, with information and knowledge that they're going to need to be able to hold the conversation with the college coach. Because at the end of the day, again, I say this out of all love, but parents or coaches don't want to hear from parents. And I know that's a very tough conversation to have, but building that own identity in your young dancer and that maturity to be able to hold that when that time comes, when they could be 14 or 15 years old and they're at one of these combines and having to hold down that conversation with the college coach, it's a lot to ask. So preparing them for that moment is key. And I think parents are obviously a huge part of that, but making sure we don't overstep and do it for them. So that way they don't know, they don't know the information for themselves.
I love you just said
absolutely
that. I love
absolutely
that.
Thank you I know that, like you said, there's parents out here who probably have their little earmuffs on.
Right. I know. I'm always like, I say this out of love. I mean, listen, my mom's on here. She was always my coach. So like she was never really like the dance mom, but it's funny now. Cause like now that she's not my coach anymore. It's like funny to watch her like transition into being like the number one fan dance mom now. I'm older now, so I didn't get to see her ever be, that person for me. But I think that's something that I, just to give my parents a shout out that they were always like, okay, like we'll help you, but you got to figure this out,
exactly.
So I think that's huge.
And I think parents don't realize that by spoon feeding, you're not preparing them to go out and do it themselves. So thank you so much for that. Let's talk about resources. Since we've talked about parents, we've told them what they need, or what the best way that they can support their dancers. Are there any resources that dancers should be taking advantage of in their junior? Well, you said start early, so I'm gonna add sophomore, junior, senior year, like camps or workshops to prepare them for tryouts.
Yes. So I'll start and then Mom, you can come in, whenever, but there are a lot of opportunities. So that's a great question I always get asked. Let me start with when do I start? Let me start by saying that if you're a senior on here or a senior parent and you're panicking because we're telling you to start early and you haven't, it's okay. I would just say speed up the timeline of like how you're going to do things. So it is okay if you're later in your process and you're just figuring this out. That's okay too. I would say that by the time you are a sophomore, you should just start to generally be like researching, attending recruiting events, attending clinics, attending combines, that type of thing, which I'll get into in a second, those specific events. So sophomore year is definitely for your time. I feel like to just get like as much exposure as possible. Junior year is now the time to start to narrow down, like what is ideally attainable goals for me as a dancer? What are areas that I'm really weak in as I'm going to these events my sophomore, junior year? Where are areas that I'm weaker in that I should really focus on versus areas that I know are my, what I call like your special items, your secret weapons that you can bust out and that can make you stand out. And so that's your junior year is like the narrowing down, like my mom talked about the spreadsheet about like narrowing down, like, okay, location, weather, campus, SAT versus academic requirements, like just categories to start to narrow down that list. And then by the time you get to your senior year, you're narrowed down to your top 3 to 5 schools that you feel are a great fit for both what you want and what are, I always use the word attainable goals for you as a dancer. As far as resources, I'll just touch briefly. And I know my mom has a bunch more specifically for parents, but as far as in-person resources go, there are so many out there. Most college dance teams, and you'll find this information on their website or by following them on social media, most college dance teams will host independent events for their own recruiting purposes. So usually you'll see the terms clinics or recruiting weekends, where dancers will actually get to come on the campus. Oftentimes they'll do a campus tour. They will teach combos. You'll get feedback from the coach. It's like the best way. And I know that this is very challenging for a lot of people because we aren't able to just travel wherever and bop around to 50 different college campuses. But the ones that you really think that might be a good fit for you, I would encourage parents to get on campus if you can. If that is something that you can do, definitely encourage that, because it's sometimes the first way where our first time that we can really see the team in their own element, and not, on Instagram where everything is happy bubbly. We actually see how they talk to each other and watch the coach. And we get to kind of see the internal dynamic, which is so important when we're talking about dancers finding that right place for them. So independent recruiting clinics on campuses is a big one. And then external events such as, a shameless plug, here we go, the Tribe 99 Dance Combine, which actually, I hate to plug this because our in-person passes are sold out. It sold out so quick this year. We are working on trying to accommodate more people, but in the meantime, this event, for those that don't know, we're going into our 6th annual event. We host it in Nashville, Tennessee. It's on May 14th and 15th this upcoming year in 2022. This event was designed, which is really cool because I didn't have this opportunity when I was graduating, where high school dancers fly in from all across the nation. We have upwards of 200 dancers that get to connect with college coaches from all across the nation. So it's really this kind of one-stop shop that I never really had the opportunity of having, where you can show up to one event and be able to connect, learn about scholarship opportunities, learn about all these different programs in one singular event. So it's really cool. It's called the Dance Combine. I'm sure that we will, get the link out to you guys for registration.
I already put it in.
Perfect.
Pop it
And
in
we have
Instagram,
virtual passes right now only. So it's called the Gold Experience Pass. It's pretty much the exact participation that you would do in person, just on a virtual setting. So you'll learn the combos, all your information gets sent out to college coaches, your video, you put together this combine video, which is very similar to a recruiting video. So it's actually really great practice for the dancers. And that video also gets sent out to all the college coaches. So though it's virtual and our in-person passes are sold out, it's another great opportunity to get exposure to college coaches that you really aren't going to get exposure to anywhere else. So I would highly encourage you to attend any type of combine events, recruiting clinics, any type of a dance team, industry professional camps, clinics, summer workshops, anything like that, where you can get a palm technique class. Anything like that will be helpful as well.
Right. We have a comment on Instagram, but I do want to say this before that. We keep emphasizing dance team professional. And I do want to say, just from my experience, there's a difference in a dance team professional and I'm going to call it a studio.
Yeah.
Choreographer, or because I've had people come to me before and be like, hey, can you choreograph for my dance team? Absolutely not. I have no idea what I'm doing. There's clear technique that is different, that you need a dance team professional for. So thank you for continuing to make that delineation between the two. Not one more important than the other, or better than the other, but those are different. We have a comment on Instagram from It's Kyle Rush. Any advice for dancers on a junior college dance team that's looking to transfer?
Yeah, and I get that asked that a lot. And to be honest, I honestly seen a lot of transfer students get onto college, new college teams as well, these competitive schools. Same advice that I gave the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. You might be the oldest one in the room, but hey, sometimes you're the most experienced, and get after it. Show up to the combine, show up to recruiting events, show up to clinics, get your name, get your, information out there, get your dance ability out there. I would say the same for anybody that's on their recruiting journey. No different for you, just because you're looking at a new opportunity for yourself in college. Get on campus, attend those events, get your name out there. I think it's same exact thing. Great way it's definitely possible. If you're a transfer student, I get asked this a lot. Is this even an option? And yes, it is.
The one thing I would just like to talk about to parents is get your financial ducks in a row early as well. Whether you're applying for financial aid or whether you're looking at scholarship situations, there are lots of scholarship opportunities in dance at the NAIA level. People don't realize that at the NAIA level, dance is a sport, and they have lots of scholarship money to throw at people. So if finances are an issue, you've got to get those financial resources in order early. And the one thing I would really caution parents is to, we keep saying early. And the reason is because kids get to their senior year and they're thinking about prom and graduation and this and that. And it puts so much stress on those young people. And if you can alleviate that by getting things done a lot earlier in their junior year, sophomore year, it really helps them have a mental commitment, maybe already recruited and signed by the time they go into their senior year, and they can just woohoo, have fun, and really focus on their current dance experience, their studios, their dance teams, whatever their obligations are. And the other thing I would talk about too is if you're going to do any college visitation, you're going to probably narrow it down to 1 or 2 key places. You want to plan those early and plan those strategically when you're going to have an opportunity to actually talk to the coach and have a calm experience. I would not recommending going on a college visitations a week before college nationals, because you are not going to see the same experience. You're going to see crazy dancers and crazy coaches. And so plan that strategically as well.
I love that. That's great advice. Thank you both so much. I want to, because we're getting to the end of our time, I want to, here we go. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. I got kicked off of Instagram. So I want to get to homework because we're big on we want to see change, right? So I want one thing from each of you really quickly, one thing our audience can practice or put into practice between now and next week. So 7 days, something they can do right now to take a step in this area. So Carsen, you first.
Yes. I'm going to go back to the research tool that I always give, which is get a spreadsheet going, write down, start to look at any and all college dance teams that you generally are interested in and break it up into categories: location, distance from home, whether you have to fly, scholarship opportunities. How many seniors do they currently have on the team versus how many dancers they have on the team? What categories do they compete in? Do they compete? Where do they compete at? What dance brand? Like every single category that you can even remotely think. Academic requirements, SAT requirements. A lot of these schools have these. I would give you your homework right now to start that spreadsheet and start to get at least 2 schools filled out. So write it down, get as many as you can. No school, just fill out anything and everything. Because you might, by doing this, so many college dance teams look the same from the outside. And this is what I'll kind of leave everybody with is from the outside looking into the industry. So many college dance teams, you see them on the sideline, they compete, they do this, they, are great representatives of the university. They all tend to look the same, but they're not. They're really, really different in their team dynamic, in the expectations, and what they do on campus, in their resources, in their scholarships that they give out. There are so many different things that make these teams unique. And so I think the big mistake that I see dancers making is choosing a team solely based off of the dance team and forgetting that that is your home away from home for 4 years. And you have to, more importantly, I always say, if the dance team got taken away tomorrow, because we never know, would you still love that school? And that is huge because that is your new family, your new whatever. So get that spreadsheet done, get at least 2 schools filled out, get I would say up to 10 categories of things from location to academic requirements, and start to get that initial information. That'll be super helpful on you and your recruiting journey.
Thank you, Carsen. Teri, your homework.
Well, Carsen stole mine, but I'll roll with it. I would say as part of that spreadsheet, I would challenge them to look at 2 things. Look at the coach and look at the school itself. Besides all those details that Carsen gave, I think a lot of times kids look at something, exactly what Carsen said. On the outside, they look the same. Oh, I see them at the game, and oh my gosh, they won nationals, and they have these great outfits. But then come down to, you might find out that that's a commuter school, and they don't have the big game day experience that you were looking for. So you've really got to get on those websites and look critically and answer all those questions. Carsen gave you about a bajillion things to look at, but I really would challenge you to focus on that is going to be your home for the next 4 to 5 years. And if dance team was gone, would you be happy living there? Would you be happy with the academic life, with the social life, with the community itself? Is it urban? Is it rural? Are you going to be living out in a wheat field? Are you going to be living downtown where, you have to be concerned about health and safety. I mean, it's completely different issues. So you got to look at those. The other thing is research the coach. This is the person that's going to be impacting you, and you need to look at the way they coach. And if you can find, if they've got it written anywhere, their coaching philosophy, learn as much as you can about that coach, because you may be the kind of person that I'm not a warm, fuzzy person. I don't coach that way. Carsen can attest to you. If you were waiting for me to give you a hug,
it's not
going
happening
to the wrong place.
But there's some kids that need that, right?
And that's
Absolutely.
huge. I just said this to my cousin. She's actually a young dancer. She's a junior, and I just called her yesterday, and I said something that I would encourage you to remember is using this time wisely, also to look at yourself and look at what you need to succeed, because to that point, that is so crucial. All these coaches, their philosophies and the way that they approach coaching is very differently. And so you have to know that ahead of time. And a lot of times I see, sadly, a lot of dancers, when they don't enjoy their experience, they end up transferring. They don't like it because they need that lovey-dovey lead with emotion coach, but they signed up for this coach that they know does not lead that way, or doesn't, approach their coaching that way. And so looking inwards to make sure that, what you need to succeed, and what's going to make you better in the 4 years that you're there is crucial too, because you don't want to sign up for something that you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. So I want to be really clear. So when we're digging around on the website, right, we're going to go to the website and get this information. We're not just going to email the coach straight away.
No.
Right. Yes.
Do you recommend, if you have additional questions that aren't answered on that site, should you reach out to the coach via email? Should the dancer reach out to the coach via email? Who should be doing that connection? Or do you not recommend that at all at this point?
I'm smirking.
Carsen's laughing. It's always the dancer, because once you hit 18, you're an adult, and this is the person that's going to be on the coach's team, not mommy and not daddy. And so the dancer needs to establish that relationship with the coach from the very beginning. That's critical.
I think that's important for people to hear. That's why I asked.
Exactly. That is crucial. Exactly. There are appropriate topics, of course, that parents need to be involved in: financial, medical. There are certain subjects that of course, I don't want to deter any high school coach or high school, either coach or parent, from ever reaching out to a college coach, because there are topics, of course. But yes, it shows a level of preparedness, a level of maturity, a level of professionalism when a high school dancer has the ability to communicate professionally via email with a coach. So definitely want to make sure that the dancers are doing it. And because I think that, again, it always just reflects really positively on you as a young dancer.
And I've said this before, and I'm going to take a moment to say it again. It's really important as directors, educators at the studio level, parents, as soon as our kids hit that 9 to 10-year-old, maybe 11, 12 age group, encourage them to be able to look their director in the eye, to be able to form complete sentences and advocate for themselves. And obviously you are their biggest advocate as their parent, but them being able to hold a conversation and express their thoughts and feelings while looking somebody in the eye is crucial. Truly so valuable. And it's severely lacking in the teenagers that we're seeing come through the doors. I cannot tell you how many times that, I said, I will talk to the dancer, but the dancer has to come talk to me and just break down in complete tears. And I'm not a scary person, but break down in complete tears because they just are so overwhelmed at the thought of even having to sit across the table from me and have a hard conversation. And so if we're encouraging, if we're encouraging that, just the eye contact alone, we're working on it with our 8-year-old son. You go up and you can give grandpa a hug, but shake his hand and make it a firm handshake and look him in the eye. And just understanding the importance of that interaction and being able to be confident in the way you present yourself is so important. And let's start that early. We like to give homework as well. We always give homework in addition to our guests. So we're going to encourage you again to take that Beyond the Steps initiative. This is a online module that you can take at your own pace. Every single module donated was curated by experts in each field. So again, it's going to tackle topics like racism, gender equity, sex abuse and prevention, psychology, nutrition, dance, medicine, science, and how all these things are impacting the dance world right now. It's a great way for you to get evidence-based research and resources for you to incorporate in your studio culture right now or your organization right now. And it's absolutely free. So we're going to pop that link Melissa already has in the chats, and you can log on today and take that absolutely free, no excuses. We also encourage everybody to look at our friends at YPAD. That's ypad.org, Youth Protection Advocates in Dance. They're doing amazing work to keep kids happy, healthy, and safe in dance. They have a certification program that gets your teachers, your organization, YPAD certified. Again, so we're keeping kids happy, healthy, safe, and dance. So important. And we have 25% off for you using the code APOLLA25. We're going to pop the link so you can sign up for the registration and the discount code in the chat so you can take advantage of that. There's nothing more important than that this year, especially with everything going on in our industry right now. It's really important that we're educated and aware. And then Teri and Carsen, just share really quick, how can people get a hold of you? I know you both do consulting work. We talked about the importance of having dance team professionals working with your studio, working with your dancers, getting advice from them. How can they reach out to you?
You can find us at nationaldancecoaches.org on the website. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can always reach out to me personally. Feel free. If you're a studio teacher, coach, we would love to have you join the NDCA. We have memberships for coaches at the all-star level, the studio level. We have tons and tons of resources to help you in any way possible. If parents need to reach out, they can reach out to me as well through the website or through nationaldancecoaches@gmail.com. More than happy to help any parent, any dancer, or any coach or teacher.
Awesome. Thank you. And Carsen, what about you?
Yes. So via our website, there's obviously just a contact us form as far as anything that you need, from choreography to consulting to speaking opportunities, anything like that can be done through our website. Two things just to kind of I wanted to throw out there as well. We also have a choreography agency. So we have about 25 choreographers that we represent from all over across the nation that provide services as well. And then one thing that I forgot, and I can't believe I forgot to throw in here, is though we are sold out of our in-person passes, we have not closed our scholarship opportunity. So I want to throw this out there. We offer at least one. Our goal this year is 2 need-based financial scholarships to dancers for our events at the Combine. So we are about to have our big fundraiser this year. That application can be found on our website by just going to the dancer registration page. If you scroll down, it should say scholarship opportunities. It's the Combine scholarship. And again, that's a need-based scholarship. We're just looking to help as many dancers as we can out, those that need financial assistance, to be able to get to Nashville to our event. So our goal is to obviously scholarship as many people. So if you're on here and you are, looking at our event, that is an opportunity for you to apply for. And then if you're a parent or somebody that just wants to help out, your generosity would be super appreciated. Like I said, we're starting our fundraiser at the beginning of December. So just stay on the lookout for ways to donate. So that way we are able to, like I said, scholarship as many kids as possible to get to our event. So definitely wanted to throw that out there as well.
You're both amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We've gotten so many comments on Facebook and Instagram about how this is just a much needed conversation and so very helpful.
Yes.
So we appreciate you. We look forward to having you back, maybe to dive deeper in some of those topics that we kind of touched on a little bit.
Not during national season though.
Yeah, but not during national season.
Like, we will call me in February. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone who joined us on Instagram, who joined us on Facebook, who joined us on Zoom. We definitely appreciate you. We appreciate you from week to week to week to week. Bree, I definitely appreciate you for taking this journey with me from week to week to week to week. So thank you so much. And speaking of week to week, next week, we have how do we foster resilience in our students with Lauren Ritchie. So that is a conversation that probably will not last just an hour. We're probably gonna have to break that one up because resilience is different for everybody. Means something different, looks different, and hits people very differently. So please join us for that 2 p.m. Eastern time on Instagram at TPDC_on_IG or on Facebook at Apollo Performance, or you can join us on Zoom. And if you do, you get recordings of every episode. So please join us on Zoom, or at least sign up to you so you can get those episodes. Thank you so much, everyone. And until next week, we hope you enjoy your journey beyond the steps.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teri and Carsen, so much.
Thank you guys so much.